But we all know that many of the leaders, the CEO level of leaders, are men and white men. And so we tried to help our organization understand the importance of allies and sponsors. It doesn't have to be your boss. It can be an employee. It can be a work colleague. It can even be a family member. It can be, and we've had all sorts of those pairs on this stage before. And I want to thank TEEDS and recognize TEEDS for this, because when I first met with the leadership at TEEDS, and I don't think I mentioned this to you, most of the leaders were white men. I actually did probably mention it, and I talked to Jeremy Arditi about it, and he said, yeah, we've got to work on that. And they certainly have, and I'm really proud of the organization and how they've worked very hard to recognize the talent in women as leaders and how they create great cultures for organizations. So we're going to dig into these stories right now, but we're also going to give you the opportunity to ask questions. And so don't be shy about that. When the time comes, in about 25, 30 minutes, we'll give you a mic. We'll ask you to stand up and tell us who you are and ask your questions, okay? Okay, here we go. So I'm going to start with a question, then I'm going to go down the line, and I'm going to ask you about one superpower your partner brings to the table.
So I think this is
You
probably...
want to introduce yourself as we go down.
Great call, Lynn. Thank you. My name is Katie. I'm the EVP of Global Marketing at TEEDS, and very excited to be here today and have all of you on our yacht. Thank you for coming again. And I think that this is probably the easiest question for me to answer because I'm lucky enough to have a great partner in crime and mentor here. I would have to say that your superpower, David, is empathy. I think that it's a underappreciated quality in leadership today, and that it really is something that helps really empower others around the organization and helps you kind of figure out how to identify people's strengths and elevate them accordingly. And that's something that's really benefited me personally and in my career. I like to think it's one of my superpowers as well.
Well, we'll hear that from DK in a moment.
Just a tip, DK. But yes, I think that it's something that I really come to value and appreciate.
Great. So hi, I'm David or DK. So you'll hear DK or David. I'm the CEO of TEEDS. TEEDS is a combination of Outbrain. We acquired TEEDS and we renamed ourselves as the new TEEDS that you see here. So very excited to have all of you join us. Thank you for joining. So superpowers, I would say that you I will not say empathy. You just get it done. I mean, even if there's so many obstacles and other things, you're just focused on getting it done perfectly. You're a perfectionist, and doesn't matter. I mean, you cannot be derailed, and it's challenging. We'll talk about some of the challenges today. But Katie is very focused. I know she will get it done, and I always can rely on you. So that's superpower.
Very nice. Stacy and Dimitri, introduce yourselves, please, and what are your respective superpowers?
Well, those sound like very complimentary ones. I'm Stacy Deriso. I'm responsible for initiative in the U.S., and I would say Dimitri's superpower is ease and calm, which I could use a lot of. So I think it's very helpful for me and for everyone, really.
Yeah, very complimentary. Yeah, I'm Dimitri. I'm the global CEO of Initiative. Stacy's superpower, I actually didn't know that was a thing, is her spidey senses. You guys know what that means? I didn't know what that meant, but she has incredible spidey senses. So when she says something's up, something's really up. So very powerful.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Panico. I'm the Vice President, Global Head of Media at Hilton Hotels. And Mike here, my co-conspirator, I'd say his superpower, there's a couple, but I would probably say connection is what I would say, because in a number of ways, not only did we, and you'll hear more about this, we formed a very deep connection in our relationship between agency and brand. But I'd say he's also my connector across the organization and helps me to connect dots in terms of what we're trying to accomplish at Hilton.
Thank you. I'm Mike Thomas. I am the integrated client lead at Dentsu on Hilton. Actually, we were talking about this on the way over here, not in context of you, but in context of other people. And I think that your superpower is actually balance, right? So it's not one thing or another. It's actually how you balance your strengths. And the way that I was talking about it to somebody else is you have this ability to both provide clear, candid feedback and direction, but also at the same time give other people in the room space to have their own voice and to be heard, which is a really difficult and delicate balance. So I appreciate that of you.
Appreciate that.
Well, you'll maybe then be surprised to know that she says you're the calm to her storm. And we're going to dig more into that later. So, Anne.
Yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Ann Shiner. I am EVP of Agency Partnerships at NBC Universal. And Mark Miller's superpower is being able to say the right thing at the right time. He has this incredible knack of being able to tell anybody anything they need to hear and do it with, such grace and empathy. And even if it's bad news or not the best news, they walk away like happy. So I think that's a pretty spectacular superpower.
That's very nice of you. I'm Mark Miller. I work at NBC Universal with Ann. I think Ann's amazing attribute is first of all, her calmness in the approach to any storm, any challenge, any opportunity. She goes at a very even pace and even keel. She sees the entire playing field for whatever all aspects we need to think about and consider, and doesn't just rush to get it done. She provides the ability for the team or the people that she's working with to have to get calm, think it through, and then make the right decision, not just make any decision.
Well, all great sentiments, but I would like to learn how to deliver bad news and make people smile after. That's something.
know.
Wouldn't you all like to know that? So I'm going to ask each of the pairs a couple of questions and then give you the opportunity to ask. So Katie and David. Katie, you said that David helped you develop your leadership voice. You've known each other, I believe, for about 6 years. How has that support shown up in real moments of growth? And how are you paying that forward to your teams?
It's a great question. I think that David is very skilled, similar to what some of the others have said, is being the calm voice and the calm hand in the storm, and kind of really reinforce that you can do it. I wouldn't have put you in that position if I didn't know already that you could do it. And you don't need me to intervene. You have the tools yourself. You can actually drive the change, and I'm here to back you up. But he really kind of pushed me to evangelize what I thought the right thing to do was myself, and kind of establish my own position as a leader accordingly. So that's something I really try to do for my team as well, is just show that, you're an expert in your field, you are a leader, you have skills that have put you in this position for a reason, and I'm here to back you. I'm here if you need me, but you have what you need yourself, and you can do the job without me holding your hand or kind of helping you accordingly.
That's a great lesson. So ad tech has been historically not a place that many women are holding C-level jobs, especially at the CEO level. But you are known as a champion for women. So who inspired you along the way? Where did that come from?
Honestly, it came naturally, and I think it's the right thing to do for business and the right thing to do as a person. And, sometimes it is challenging in all industries. I think ours is maybe particularly in that spot, but I think we have to do it. It's good business, as everyone will tell you, for sure. But what you need to do, I think it is a fight. I mean, we can't sort of avoid the reality that it's not enough to be a mentor and we have a great relationship. Mentoring, it actually requires more, and I will say it here to the audience, you need to, as a leader, sponsor it. I mean, sometimes fight for it, ensure, for example, there's similar visibility to what Katie does or other women do in the organization. And to me, it's just a natural thing. And again, I'm very bottom line oriented, so I think it's good business. If it were not be, I think maybe I wouldn't say it, but I think it's just proven itself time and again that it's the right thing to do, and also sort of the good thing for the business.
And it really has to be intentional. So congratulations on that. So you've just merged two companies. It's a bit of a while in the making, but I'm sure they have very different cultures. How are you integrating those cultures to ensure that all voices are heard? Because I've read that you don't want to change a culture, you want to amplify it. So what are you amplifying and what are you doing to make yours a winning culture?
So we just merged Outbrain and Teeds, about 1,000 people on each side of the organization. And one of the things we decided from day one was we're going to create one unified leadership team, which I think was a very, very important decision. So the day we closed the merger, we basically had, one CEO, one chief product officer, one CTO, one head of marketing, and so on. So I think that was very helpful to really eliminate a lot of the infighting. And we felt we are global companies, so we operate in 50 markets. I mean, the origin of Outbrain is from Israel. I mean, the origin of Teeds is from France, and we are headquartered in New York. So it's a mishmash of cultures here. But one of the things that, and I've been involved in many of these type of things in different roles, is it's about the people at the end of the day. And we felt great with Jeremy and Bertrand and the leadership team that we can make it work. And I think that's the key here. I mean, mergers succeed or fail. I personally believe more so than anything else on the personal connection and the sort of being one team looking at decisions. So, for example, Outbrain acquired Teeds. You see the name of this company is not Outbrain. I could have decided it's going to be Outbrain, but it's Teeds. It was a strategic decision, but was honestly an easy decision. And so it went throughout the whole sort of structure of the organization. And I think that's projected a one unified team approach from day one. It's not as smooth as I want it to be, and every day we still fight, but I think that was the key, was to create one team culture, sort of one dream, one team from day one, and that was very helpful.
It's so important. I had started a company with a business school friend, and we merged with 8 other companies and went public in the same day. And we oftentimes talked about the day 2 problem. Yeah. And the day 2 problem is the problem one has when you aren't intentional about creating the culture. We're going to have to be very creative here, but we can do this, okay? And Teeds friends, if you can get your neighbors, oh, yay, thank you, neighbors, to pause that would be fabulous. Anyway, so we're going to move on to Stacy and Dimitri. What struck me the most in meeting you and talking to you is the mutual trust you have for one another. You described your working relationship as a yin-yang, with Stacy leaning into clients and Dimitri leaning into product. What does it take to build your brand of complementary trust, and how did you get there?
I think probably a few things. I think recognizing maybe what each brings to the table. I know what my strengths and certainly my gaps are, and I think it was pretty easy to see what Dimitri's were. And I actually remember pretty keenly when Dimitri first took on this role, we were chatting, and one of the things you said to me was, I'm going to need your help with the client side. And that just struck me as where I need to kind of lean forward, and I know where I need Dimitri's help the most. So,
yeah, and I think being complementary is really important, right? As a leader, the worst thing you can do is hire people that are exactly like you. You need to look for people that fill in the gaps, have many gaps, and I think that has worked really well. I think also, as Stacy, what helped us maybe is that we have a longer history together. We both went to the advertising school of Ogilvy. That's how we grew up. So we have a shared language, a shared sort of belief in creativity and in brand. So I think that helped as well.
absolutely.
Great, thank you. So, Dimitri, you told me you really trust Stacy's instincts.
Yes.
And you were telling us a story when we were preparing for this that you were working on Rethinking Culture at Initiative, and that she took the bold step out of the gate. You had an offsite and thinking through what that mantra meant, and she embedded that culture shift into one of the agency's biggest pitches. So, Stacy, where'd that instinct come from, and how did you build the confidence to act on it?
Oh boy. I think a few things. One, when Dimitri first took on this role and was launching the new proposition and product and initiative, right away, I remember kind of being in the room hearing it and had a big round of applause, kind of started the round of applause because it was so inspirational and powerful. And then luckily...
But it had no depth. It was just a couple of words. Because that's how all these
That's
propositions
typically
start.
the most powerful
Yes, yeah.
ones, right? But coincidentally, or luckily, or I don't know, maybe bad luck, we had a pitch going on at that time, and we had to use this as our jumping off point. And the reality is a pitch is an agency's R&D lab. So we put that to the test and I think brought it to life and dimensionalized it. We got some things right and some things wrong, but it was kind of fun.
No, you built it, right? Like, I think Stacy's all about action, and it was pretty incredible. We did the presentation, and literally an hour later, she was in a war room, putting it to the test, putting it into practice on clients. So, and that's how the product gets better, right?
That's awesome. Dimitri, you also told me that for the two of you to win together, you have to intentionally give Stacy the freedom to run with it. So how easy is that to do? And what advice would you give to work partners to fight the instinct to try to take over?
Yeah. It's very easy, and she wouldn't have it in any other way. But that's what I like about Stacy, right? And I think as a manager, if you have the right team, you trust them, you give them the space, and that has always been very easy with Stacy.
Oh, thank you. Great. So, Rebecca and Michael, so in interviewing all of you, I learned that some of you have 6 years of partnership, some of you have a decade or so of partnership, some of you have decades of partnerships, and you've known each other for less than a year. So, Michael, when we do this event, Rebecca called us and told us that you were the calm to her storm. Talk a bit about the power of your two personalities and your style colliding. And how did you become such true partners and co-conspirators so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it's very flattering that she calls me the calm to her storm, because I don't see the storm that she feels, right? And I think that's really what it comes down to, is she doesn't see the storm that's inside my head as well, right? And that's what we're all dealing with. Like we're all dealing with the chaos of the realities of our job, and rapid change that's happening in the industry, in our organizations respectively, and our jobs together are to collaborate to actually drive innovation and change. So it's manic often, it's stressful always, and the thing that I think we do is we support one another, and we are extraordinarily candid in our communications with one another to put everything out there on the table of what are we thinking, what are we feeling, what do we have to do, and what is actually concerning us about that, so we can stop and just talk it through. And I mean, she's just as much of a calming force for me as I am for her. Like it's the partnership, but it's the communication, and the collaboration in the using an old-fashioned solutions development. Like, right, we have to figure out what are the next steps in order to, start the journey on this monumental change that we're both trying to affect. But it's candid communication that gets us there.
And Rebecca, we talked about the fact that the travel vertical is in a phase of rapid transformation. And while leaders want change, people generally hate change. They really do. But when you have a great partnership, you can come up with transformative ideas, and you can create that calm among your leaders. So tell us a story about how this partnership has potentially resulted in a transformation at Hilton.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's extremely widespread. I think I'm actually looking right across the bay to one of our beautiful lifestyle properties, the Canopy. Little shameless plug. But I think it comes down to what Mike was saying, is that we immediately built a very candid relationship built on trust, or we established trust pretty quickly. And one of the big, I think, problems or opportunities that we brought forward was that Hilton is a brand that people know, but not necessarily a brand that people love. And as we think about the next generation of travelers who might not think of Hilton as their brand or a brand for them, it's their brand that their parents stayed at for business, and maybe they took a trip on a holiday. And they're seeking, these younger travelers especially, are seeking out a different experience that's unique from what they might have experienced as children growing up. And they didn't think of Hilton that way. And so we established that as one of our big opportunities, is how do we start getting into the hearts and minds of young travelers so that they're building loyalty with our brand, experiencing the 24 brands that we have within our portfolio. And the fastest growing part of our portfolio is, in fact, our lifestyle and luxury brands, which is what those types of travelers, younger travelers, are seeking out. And so Mike and I just talked really candidly. How do we do that? How do we think about our media strategy in a way that's more modern, more socially first, and allows us to really be authentic and engage with young travelers? That's very different from the way we might have gone to market in the past. And it was one of those things where Mike and I talked about it. We discussed the next steps. It's utilizing data in a different way. It's partnering with Teads and other partners to help us distribute our content to those in those channels that young people are engaging with. But then to bring that into our internal conversations with our executive leadership, who are not younger travelers, right? They don't always engage in social media in the same way or even understand what an influencer and why that's an authentic opportunity for our brand. And so we just kind of worked through the problem together, and we're continuing to work through that problem because, as you mentioned, it's not just change today. This is going to be an evergreen opportunity for a brand like Hilton. And so we cannot just sit on change today. We have to constantly be evolving, thinking through today the role of AI and making sure that we are a very discoverable brand and we're in those places that travelers are seeking travel content, and then putting our brand first and foremost and making sure we're discoverable in those spaces. So we're constantly having to reimagine, and I couldn't imagine doing it without a partner like Mike, who is actually the calm, who's I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a thing that I have to deal with right now. How do I talk about it with my leadership? Because they don't understand it and it's very confusing for them. And we just, again, he like calms me down, he connects the dots, brings in the right people, and we work through the problem together. So
You know, there's
really great.
if you're a woman on this panel, and if you're a woman in this room, you know that you've been in a situation where you have an idea in a room, and you share that idea, and then about 5 minutes later, John has the same idea, and people will like say, "Oh, John, good idea." What's really nice about your partnership is that what Rebecca said about you is that you help her tell and sell the story. And that's what's so important about allyship in any industry, is to have men as allies and drummers and confidence builders, and have women as the same. Do you have an example of when you helped sell the story?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't come up with a specific thing, but I can tell you the strategy, right? And when we talk about these issues, we have how do we get everybody aligned in the same direction is really where we start, right? So getting everybody aligned on what the challenge is not necessarily so difficult, but getting everybody aligned on what we need to do about the challenge, that's what's most difficult. So that's where we spend most of our time plotting. That's why I call Rebecca my co-conspirator, because that's really what it's about. It's about exploring who are the stakeholders that we need to make sure that we're communicating with, and then figuring out what is it that they care about, and then discussing the right way to bring the right information to them to engineer the outcome in their mind so that they come to the same conclusion that we have, right? And so we spend a lot of time plotting and how we can architect these conversations with other people.
Yeah.
And that's
But
sort of
I would
systems
say-
in leadership. You know, that's what's great, because then you're modeling that for other people, and they understand your thought process, and then you're creating a system that other people can replicate, and that's great. So, Ann and Mark, you've known each other the longest on this panel, decades. I'm not telling them how long. You can tell them if you choose to, but you've weathered a lot together: reorgs, leadership changes, and evolving priorities. And let's start with you. How has your working relationship evolved over time? And what do you think has helped strengthen your trust in each other?
Sure. First, Rebecca, I have to tell you that NBC has quite a few rooms at that Canopy Hotel over there.
Thank you, Anne.
I thought you'd be
I hope
pleased
your
to hear
stay is
that.
wonderful.
But I'm going to go back a bit. I'll tell you a story. After I had my third child, I did a job share at NBC Universal. So I worked 3 days, and my job share partner worked 3 days, and we had worked together as account executives. So we knew each other pretty well. And then we spent 6 years in a job share, and that was a partnership that I never thought I would be able to duplicate. We trusted each other. We'd had each other's backs. It was like we were one person. And you know, the best part was when I didn't want to have a hard conversation, she would have it, or vice versa. So it was something that, you know, I never wanted to give up. Net, I gave it up. I went back to work full time, and you know, I felt like I had to start from scratch a little bit when it came to kind of, you know, any partnerships with other people. And over time, Mark and I started to work together a little more peripherally at first. He was at, I think, USA at the time. I was at CNBC. And as we have done over the past few years, we've reorganized. We've collapsed different verticals, and we've started working more together as a company. So I got the opportunity to work worked more closely with Mark over time. And he's become a mentor. He's become somebody that, as I had said before, always knows the right thing to say. I tend to second guess myself. So was somebody that I would go to and ask for advice. And when you ask somebody for advice and they hit it on the head every single time, you start to trust them. And you keep building that trust to the point where we are today, where we're coworkers and we're friends.
That's wonderful. Mark, you said that Anne is all about the details, while you focus more on the big picture. So how do your individual styles complement one another, and what makes the partnership work so well?
Well, I will get into the weeds a little bit, but Anne is the thing I love about Anne is we're working together. We work in a very broad, highly matrixed company, and it's hard. You almost never have consensus around any decision. You have people that will take your point of view, and we advocate for each other's points of view. But what I think Anne and I complement each other. It's kind of left brain, right brain in most, as we're looking to lead and make a decision that affects our organizations or the things that we're responsible for. Ultimately, it's our call, but obviously it's going to be much more successful the more people inside of the org that you can have align with your way of thinking or the decision you're about to make. And the thing that I value so much in our relationship is Anne helps me think through how to build consensus in a situation that that I have to make a call on. And so it's not just what I think. She helps me organize my thinking to see what the org is starting to think. And again, you're not going to get 100% consensus. And as Ann pointed out, we've reorged, the Lord knows how many times over the last 30 years. But you do your best to try and get that momentum and that buy-in from the broad organization. And Ann's fantastic at helping me to think that through.
That's great. So I thought the audience would be really interested in understanding how great partnerships can create great business outcomes. And so I asked you if you could think of one to talk about, and the summer concert series at NBC was one. Can you share a little bit about how that resulted?
So we have a franchise in the Today Show, and it's the concert series. For those of you who remember that far back, the American Egg Board was the first sponsor of the concert series. And then after that, we had Toyota, who sponsored it. They were a sponsor for probably about 12 years. Yeah. Does that sound right? And then they decided to change direction, so we needed to find a new sponsor. It was probably, one of the biggest sponsorships that we had in Today's Show at the time. So it was critical that we got a partner in there pretty quickly. So we took a different approach, and this approach was designed by Mark Miller. And what we decided to do was we wanted to have our partners come to us with what they could bring to the table. So we put together what we thought was the strongest partnership that we could possibly come up with for this new vision for the concert series. So one of the big things with that was actually naming rights, which we had not done. So it was always, the concert series presented by. So Mark came up with the notion of saying, let's make it let's say in this case, the Toyota concert series. So we took that out as part of our big package, and we said, these are what it could look like. These are all the things that we can bring to the table. Now, what can you bring to us? So we did a reverse RFP, and we said, if you want to be part of this, then come to us, tell us what you can bring, and make it impressive. And we got, I think, 5 or 6, right?
5, yeah.
Really incredible offers. It was what a true partnership should really look like, because this and many 3 or 4 wound up kind of moving down the line, wanted that partnership as much as we wanted it. So it was extremely beneficial and collaborative. And this was born out of, one of Mark's ideas.
Our ideas.
Yeah. Well, and we were able to sell it through, and the City Concert Series has been running for the last, I would say, dozen years right now,
It's
and still strong.
Yep.
So
And a model
Give a round
that
of
you
applause for
use
that.
For a lot of
For anyone who
things.
sells sponsorships, who would like to do a reverse RFP?
we don't want to take credit for everything that came after that, but
I have to say, I have to jump in here because Anne gives me a lot of credit for that. We were trying to brainstorm because it was one of those things in business where failure was not an option. I mean, we had to sell it, and we had to have a great sponsor, and we had to have somebody that was going to commit to a long-term relationship because we didn't want somebody who was going to come in for a couple of years and then flip them out and have another brand and just have a rotation of brands every year or two. We wanted somebody that was going to truly partner with the Today brand as well as the music and the importance of music inside of what Today is as a program and content. And the great thing again about working with Anne is I knew that it was going to get done. We had this idea of how we were going to try and build this relationship and create the partnership and different value. But I knew in my gut that there was absolutely no way it was going to fail because Anne was going to make it work and make it happen.
That's great. So now it's your turn, audience. I have a couple more questions for our dynamic duos, but I'd love some brave soul to let Natalie hand them the mic so you can ask a question. And when you do ask your question, just stand up and tell us who you are, please. So just raise your hand and don't be shy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Easted. I work at Triple Lift. Quick fun fact, I worked at NBC 19 years ago for Mark Miller. And I can attest to leaving every conversation with a smile on my face. I guess my question, or maybe you can help shed some light. You all have amazing relationships, that's evident. But I would love to hear how you navigate a relationship either from personal experience or somebody on your team where it's been a bit more contentious and maybe a more difficult relationship. Again, either something you've dealt with personally or somebody on your team with another member of your team, and how you help bring them through it or get yourself through it.
Who'd like to jump in?
I can take a stab at it because I think it's actually, you're sparking something that I wanted to comment with you guys on. I'm actually very impressed that you're a client and an agency up here because it's a whole other kind of partnership that I'm glad to see represented. And so I think what I'll take it back to is probably client agency, not necessarily difficult, but I'd say sometimes there are challenges or tensions involved. And one of the things that we've done at Initiative is we launched what we called an empathy charter. And what that is it sets guardrails and parameters for what an agency-client relationship should look like. And I think it goes back to your original question. This could be personal, professional, whatever. These are relationships, right? And so how do we set them up and talk about what's going to be successful and how we're going to help each other, what our boundaries are, what we want to do together, what we don't, how we want to treat each other, things like that. So I think from that standpoint, it's all about communication, clarity, and expectation setting, and that's how we at least handle it at Initiative.
Yeah, I can add. I think we were actually kind of talking about this a little on the way over as well, around I think when you're dealing with a person or a situation that is contentious, a lot of times at least I like to think about, okay, well, let me put myself in their shoes. What are they trying to communicate? And sometimes that communication style might be that they're leaning into a particular trait about themselves that, is imbalanced. And so I try to think about the empathetic point of view of like, okay, well, what are they trying to say to me? And then how do I balance that with standing firm to my point of view, but recognizing that my point of view isn't the only point of view. And I think then I lean into the values that I hold for myself. And I would recommend all of you, if you haven't done that work, is to understand what your values are and then always draw upon them so that you can approach the situation in a way that's true to yourself, that ultimately gets you to hopefully an outcome that you're trying to seek out. So for me, that's approaching it with empathy, but also flexibility, optimism that we're going to solve it together, and ensuring that, at the end of the day, we have a mutually beneficial outcome. It's not always easy, or I'm not always successful at it, but that's what I strive to do, because, I can't control the other person on the end of that. And then sometimes you just walk away, agree to disagree, and move on, and you can't ruminate on it. But that's at least what I try to do when I'm navigating a particularly challenging issue. And they happen a lot. We don't always agree across our organizations, but at least I find when I can stay true to my own values, then no matter what the outcome, which we try to be, very much a successful one, then at least I know I did my best.
Maybe I will sort of say a couple of similar, but I would say two things. A recommendation is just first listening. I mean, take a step back, deep breath, and listen. And then you don't have to drive to the outcome at the same time. Just, give it another day sometimes and listen, give it some time, and, things sort of work out in a different way when it's not in the same moment. And honestly, even for myself, sometimes I think I hear something, I listen. Obviously, with my wife, I'm convinced I'm right, but I listen, I try and understand, and then the next day, we've had a few of those, in our relationship, and okay, let's talk about it tomorrow. I understand, and I process it more, and then I think we drive to a better outcome, not immediately, so just a recommendation.
It's also helpful when you have someone you trust that you can sort of role play together. One of the things I admired about Rebecca and Mike's relationship is he told me that she sees things on his team and she sees talent on his team that helps him be a better manager too, which is really nice. So having someone you trust when you're feeling vulnerable is really a nice one too. So I think we have a question right here.
Hey, everybody.
Help us understand who you are.
Yes, I'm Sequoia Glenn, a member of She Runs It Atlanta in the new chapter. So excited to be here. I'm also a founder, and I used to be over at the Constant Change back when it was effective, for those that know. But I have my partner here, Larry Adams, and we ran into a situation at World Economic Forum where there was an issue of safety with another young woman. And Larry, this is literally, I promise I didn't coach him up for this. He really stepped in to make sure we were safe and use his presence to say, hey, not cool, dude. So here we talked a lot about internal organization safety psychologically, but I would love to get any tangible tips for the men and other women allies as well. How can we ensure we're safe in this big, this big festival? What practical tips or ways that the gentlemen can stand up for maybe physical harm or something that you can see is visibly uncomfortable for the ladies? And if the ladies want to weigh in what ways can you make sure you're in line and kind of look out and make sure you also say thanks? So we'd just love to hear any practical applications.
I can add something. I think that's a great timely question. I think that it's really simple in my point of view. It's to say something and address it. I think that there's a lot of opportunity to kind of lean into, oh, it's a little uncomfortable, or maybe it's not what I think it is, or maybe the comment wasn't meant that way. At the end of the day, that really just supports kind of the proliferation of more of those opportunities for bad things to happen. And sometimes things that don't seem like that big of a deal snowball into something that really is. So it's important, I think, for male counterparts to take that moment and say, no, don't do that. And it's really that simple sometimes. It kind of just nips it in the bud and takes the air out of the situation. And I know that I personally really appreciate seeing others do that.
Yeah, and I think it's important as leaders also to have zero tolerance for that, right? Because you set the example. You have to speak up at those occasions because they become examples of the culture you're setting. So it has a lot more impact than that just one interaction.
Do we have time for another question or two? I'll keep watching. So if you think of something, raise your hand. So we have a couple of lightning round questions I just want to ask you. These are a little silly, but why not? If your leadership duo were a TV show, what would the title be? Existing show or make one up? Down the line.
Oh, I did not prepare for this question, so I'm gonna choose something that I think it's meant to be a joke. So let's hope it comes across that way. I would say Breaking Bad. Actually, on a serious note.
Tell us more.
Exactly. Now,
Who's Jesse?
how can
Who's
I
Jesse?
how can I
Who am I?
explain this? Yeah. On a serious note, by the way, one of my favorite shows. Highly recommend if you haven't seen it. I think that the relationship between Walt and Jesse of just kind of constantly balancing each other out, kind of giving and taking from the other, and feeling truly like you're someone that we're in it together to figure out how to do this crazy thing. And you'll do a little bit here, I'll do a little bit there, but it's a balance and a partnership, and it's fun as well. We laugh a lot.
So are you Walt or Jesse?
I'm definitely Jessie. Sorry, DK.
Okay, it's actually one of the best shows, so I'll give you that. Maybe The Office. I mean, that's how it feels in our company, so I'll say The Office. So.
Awesome.
I'm going to go with Ted Lasso because I'm all about comedy and I like that. Oh, good. See, I like that it's a male, female kind of trying to figure all this out.
That's a tricky one. Sopranos, like one big happy family.
I'm not even going to ask who I am in that then.
No.
Dysfunctional but loving.
Okay, so I'm going to say Mulder and Scully from the X-Files. There's a nice, healthy discourse. There's a lot of complicated issues. We have a strong relationship, and there's some art and science in there as well.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we did already discuss
collaborate
this. We collaborated
on this one
There was a lot of
already, so you
candid
see it in action.
communication. Yeah, but I'm definitely Mulder in this.
Yeah,
just
I'm
saying.
totally the scientific one.
I'm the one that's
Scully.
always like, pie in the sky, dreaming, thinking about all the amazing things that could be, always optimistic.
And I'm like the doctor.
Okay, Anna Mark.
Okay, so I Mark didn't like this, but I said The Odd Couple, and think about it in more of an abstract way, though, right? I mean, one of us isn't neat and the other isn't messy, although I think I'm a little bit neater. I just think, partnerships are complicated. You each have, a little bit of both, Felix and Oscar in you. And I think, ultimately, you really do appreciate each other for those characteristics. And that's why, they make a good partnership.
I just didn't want to be the guy sitting back chewing on a cigar on the couch all the time. But
Okay, one more question, and I'm going to start with Mark. What's the one non-work thing your partner does better than you?
oh boy, this one I didn't think through. I guess what I would say is Anne is really good at making friends. Like Anne will get on an airplane and start chatting up whoever's on next to her, and before long, they've exchanged cards. He gives her a book, and all of a sudden they have some kind of a professional relationship. Anne just has the ability to find the goodness in each person that she comes into contact with in her professional life and in her personal life, and just does a really, really good job of building relationship and making friends.
So I swear mine is very similar, and I don't think we talked about this.
We didn't talk about that.
But Mark is great at keeping in touch with people, and continues, relationships, whether they are working together or not working together anymore. And I think that's really, impressive.
Well, we're going to find out in just a moment because, yes, we did not talk about this, but Rebecca apparently can sing. So now I don't know, but like I said, we will find out in just a moment because she will be at karaoke at the Palais if anybody wants to come see her. And then we'll all find out just how well she sings.
I can tell you she sings very well because I've heard Rebecca sing.
See? That,
Yes.
When are you doing that, Rebecca?
What's that?
You're doing it.
When? I'm going to be doing it I'm on stage at 5:56. If you all want to come on down and watch me. Yes, Anne has witnessed. We do host together a karaoke night during Upfront Week, so it's always a very fun time with NBC. And my superpower for Mike would be that he's just a really cool person. Like, I'm just amazed by his life, and I think he does cool better than I do, for
That's
sure.
cute. Dimitri.
For me, it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. Stacy's superpower, or spidey senses. She reads people better than I do. She has a healthy sense of paranoia. She's always looking for what could be wrong, and she's as a result of that always a step ahead. So.
Oh boy. One thing I know Dimitri does better than I do is he rides a motorcycle. Oh. So there's that. I've never been on one.
I'll take your one.
I imagine Katie does better is dancing because I don't dance well. So I can imagine you. I hope for you dance better, but in the work environment, I think she. The way she holds people accountable is something I learned from too. And I'm the CEO, but I learned from her. She does it in a great way with her team. That some of them are here, but she does it in a nice way, holding them accountable if they don't deliver. She makes sure they deliver. So.
I'll end us as the background music ushers us out, which is totally planned. So
Yeah.
I have a really easy answer. Dickie stays on a budget much better than I do. This man takes economy middle seat any chance he can get, and I'm just not cut out for that anymore. So
Nice.
you win.
Give a big round of applause for these great dynamic duos. This is what makes work and life fun, having great partners in crime to work with. So thank you very much for your generosity. I had a great time. I hope you did too.